occasion to celebrate progress, equality, and women's empowerment, but also to critically reflect on those accomplishments and strive for greater momentum towards greater gender equality worldwide. The United Nations theme for this year's observance is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow in recognition and celebration of the women and girls who are leading the charge on climate change adaptation and response to honor their leadership and contribution towards a sustainable future. It gives me great joy in welcoming everyone for the national ceremony in commemoration with the International Women's Day International Women's Day 2022 on the topic Demystifying the Cultural Landscape of Kerala, a youth perspective organized by the Finance Association and Student Affairs Committee of Nirmala College Women, Coimbatore.
Godly woman is a woman of value. She is worth far more than rubies. May I now invite the choir to lead us to the divine power. Kindly raise for the prayer. You will not let me stumble, you won't let me fall. Father of untied love.
A strong woman knows
She has a strength enough for the journey, but her level of strength knows it's a journey before she's ready. A happy moment to remember is important. Women's Day is celebrated each year on March 8th and it commemorates the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. Women's Day aims to gender equality and work towards making a better society where there is no gender bias. The reason we mark a special day for a particular celebration is not always to reduce it to that every day, but to mark a celebration of achievements that have happened over the years. I extend my note of welcome to our guest of honor, Mr. Vinod Nambiar, Director, Vayali Folklore Group, Kerala. Sir is a software engineer with 21 years of experience, being an expert in his profession, contributed to the society greatly with his humble initiative. Vayali is a group of young, vibrant people cultural capital of Kerala. Our group aim is to preserve the dying cultural of Vadaman, a place close to Thrissur. Adding further to his chat, Sam has been awarded Swami Vivekananda Youth Award 2013 by Kerala State Youth Welfare Board, Junior Research Fellowship in Folk Music by Ministry of Culture of Government of India, and Excellence Award of National Social Activity 2012 by Global Achievers Foundation, New Delhi. It is my privilege to have such an eminent person address us today. On behalf of management, I welcome you, sir. I
Thank you so much.
I agree. It is a great honor to welcome our secretary, Reverend Sister Dr. Rupi Alamedi, our principal, Reverend Sister Dr. Helen, our vice principal, Reverend Sister Dr. Mary Fabiola, the Reverend Sisters, and the heads of academic bodies. I am glad to welcome Reverend Sister Dr. Jacqueline Mary, Coordinator of Finance Association, Dr. Emu Mary, Dean of Student Affairs. I would also like to welcome the heads of various departments and staff of today's session. I am happy to welcome all the students for this session. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning to you all, and International Women's Day wishes to you all. I'm so happy to see you all. It's exciting to look at. I was thinking that technology will be giving very limited. I mean, it'll be a limited interaction, but I could see some of your faces, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to join with you on this occasion. And I'll be talking about or taking you to through the cultural landscape of Kerala. I'll be briefly going through that. And if you have any questions, you can shoot across to me. I'll be taking 20 to 25 minutes to quickly run through the landscape of cultural landscape of Kerala. I'll quickly share my screen, then we can quickly go over it. One second. I hope you all can see the screen now. And today we are going to talk about uh, the cultural landscape of Kerala. and from a youth perspective. So I know you all youngsters and studying different verticals actually, culture, technology, and science, and all the aspects. But I believe that back of in our mind, we should be having, or we should be developing an interest and efforts to understand our own culture and our own tradition. So that should be the way to understand actually. So I'm going to share some of my experience in working with violin. I hope you all enjoyed the music created by our own people. I'll come back to that later. So as you all know, Kerala is actually a small state compared to other southern states like Tamil Nadu or Karnataka or Andhra. Kerala is a small state. It's like in sandwich actually. On the other side, we have Western Ghats. Actually, it's really controlling the climate, and then on the other side we have the Arabian Sea. So it's like it's a sandwich form. So Kerala is a small state, but so diversified. You can see the districts mapped, and I'll just quickly go over it. So we'll just quickly look at the ecological uniqueness of Kerala. What made Kerala unique? I've been thinking about it actually. So these are some of my own observations. So if you look at it, the ecological aspects, so what made Kerala a goat's own country? I'm sure that you might have noticed it. I have taken the map from the government of Kerala website. Kerala has been called as a country, and why it is called Godson country. So my reason was just to explore it actually from the ecological uniqueness. As I initially mentioned, the geographical boundaries of Kerala is actually so overwhelmed or so balanced to provide such a beautiful climate or ecological, very sensitive land. In the one side it is Western Ghats, and the other side is Arabian Sea. So that's actually these are the two major elements which is controlling the climatic conditions of Kerala. And Kerala is so blessed with two monsoon seasons. And I know Coimbatore is not too far from Kerala. And you might have noticed it actually. We got two monsoon seasons, and monsoon is so connected with the life system of Kerala. So we have June to July or August, first monsoon season. Then second is October, November, the second monsoon season. So monsoon is actually a it's a very interesting phenomenon. You have to the deeper you go, you can learn more about monsoon. And I know some of you might have read about the book by Alexander about the chasing the monsoon. Travel across the monsoon till from Kerala to Cherrapunchi, and wrote a very interesting book about monsoon. So monsoon is so connected, and that's why actually monsoon, the rains really contributed in shaping up the ecology and the cultural landscape of Kerala. So that's what I thought I should be mentioning about the rainy season or the monsoon seasons. That's actually ecological uniqueness, because we got two monsoon seasons, and we are so blessed with the one side is the Western Ghats is protecting, the other side is the seashore, which is bringing the wind. And fortunately or unfortunately, we have 44 rivers, the big and small rivers. It's like a lifeline of Kerala, running across actually. So 44 rivers, it's mainly because of the monsoon season, the Western Ghats. Most of the rivers are originating from Western Ghats. So the riverine ecosystems in Kerala, that's really made Kerala greener, and that's mainly because of the riverscapes and the river systems we have, riverine ecosystems. And on top of all these three, we have the very wide coastal area, which is Arabian Seas, and other side, which is really making it happen. So if you look at it, these are the 4 points which I want to highlight. How the ecological uniqueness of Kerala is contributing back to the cultural landscape. I'm coming to that. In the next slide, I'll be talking about it. So the ecological uniqueness, you have seen it actually. So let's go to the cultural aspects. I was curious, what is the cultural history of Kerala? If you all know, Kerala has been the land for trading. Many foreigners traveled through the sea route and came to Kerala. They started the trading process. They started trading. the spices and then clothes and everything they started taking from Kerala to other countries. And you can see the Portuguese, Arabs, and British, all the people who came, the foreigners who came from different part of the world, and they came to Kerala, and they started doing trading. So that's really affected the formation, cultural formation. Actually, the foreigners really contributed a big way into the cultural landscape of Kerala. First, second, inland inventions. Actually, it's like not only the foreigners, the people from outside. The Tipu Sultan and all this, like people who are the rulers who came from other part of India and then try to conquer this land. So that they also influenced shaping up the cultural identities of Kerala. And of course, some of the eminent missionaries who came here learned Malayalam, and then they contributed very much to our literature and tradition. Actually, there are many missionaries who came, and the place where I come is from the Trishul. There are people actually, Arnos Padri, and there are many people actually who came from different part of the world with a mission to share, share the Christianity, and then they came here. They started churches and they started interacting with the community. So we can see a lot of exchange, cultural exchange between this actually. So the cultural history is a one, and of course, actually the main bigger rulers who came and the kings, who tried to invade this land for ruling, and that's a one way of foreign inventions and an inventions in foreign and inland inventions. The influence of inland culture collaborations. So if you look at it, I was closely observing. Uh, Coimbatore is very close to Palakkad belt, and in the border of Palakkad, that area, Kerala border, Palakkad side or Tamil Nadu side, you can see a lot of very unique cultural identities. Actually, that's called. There are many art forms, even though they speak Tamil or Malayalam mix of both, or their rituals, their festivals, and their belief systems all interconnected actually. So you can see an influence of Tamil culture there, and there are those people are really following the Mariamman, and then the Mari, all this actually they still follow. So there are many art forms related to it. So you can see influence of Tamil in that Palakkad and Trivandrum area, the Thiruvananthapuram side. And if you go travel to the north side, the Kannur side, Kannur Kasaragod side, you could see the connections of Karnataka, and the influence of Karnataka people. And those are the influences are the involvement from outside people to the Kerala culture and how they are interacted. We were looking at that. And second interesting point we need to look at actually, we were very open for cultural exchange. I can give a classic example, like when you go to, I belong to a river called River Bharatapuzha or River Nila, and it starts from the Pollachi Taluk, Anamala Hills, and then flowing the rest of the life in Kerala, and it belongs to the Coimbatore district, and it finally merges with the Arabian Sea at Ponnani. And if you look at Ponnani, I've been trying to learn and understanding about Ponnani for so many years, and it's such a place where a lot of information, a lot of cultural identities. The Arabs who came here, we called Mapla Muslims. Actually, they came here, they settled here, they became the traders, and then started marrying and having family here. So they are called the people who came from abroad, settled here. They called Mapla. And so you can see, if you start go in depth to the Ponnani culture, you can see the influence of Arabs in their food culture, in their dress code, in their rituals, in the language, and everything. You can see actually the very uniqueness. So this the people who came as traders and they started staying here. You can see the social harmony there actually. So there were no issues at all, in living in a small village. So interconnected, and so much of cultural exchange happened actually. So Kerala, you could see that Kerala is an open community. So we always have a tendency to accommodate people. So that's why you could see a lot of culture exchange happens. And of course cultural renaissance actually that's happened, in the late 80s, 18th century, 19th century. You can see the a lot of people started to revive or look at culture in a different manner, and providing equal relevance to all classes of people actually. So that's also given a renaissance to the identity, cultural identities or cultural expressions of people belong to different classes, different sectors of the society. And of course, a lot of modernization happening in the present cultural history of Kerala. The Cochin Biennale is a classic example. You could see that a lot of exchange happening between international cultural diaspora and in the Kerala. So you can see that this is in a nutshell. So I just try to put in the cultural history of Kerala. Like Kerala has got its own culture and tradition, everything, and the foreigners and the inland invasion started influencing, and it's mainly through trading, missionaries, and other activities. And then the influence of border states like Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, then openness of Kerala people to accommodate for cultural exchange. And of course, in the 80s or 19th century or in the beginning of 20th century, a lot of cultural renaissance happened, or giving open space and an equal weightage to all classes of people. And of course, in the recent times, we can see the modernization, innovations happening on, and the openness to innovate on the cultural space. So the bamboo music, which you really experienced it, that's an innovation from Wiley team. So it is nothing to do with the culture, the tradition, but it's an innovation all rooted to our own instrument or the patterns of music. So that's in a nutshell. So we were talking about the history of the cultural history of Kerala in a very short, precise manner. Now let's look at the cultural uniqueness of Kerala. What does make Kerala unique? I already mentioned about the ecological uniqueness. Now look at the cultural uniqueness. So the cultural zones, probably we can divide Kerala into three zones: the southern districts, the central area, and the northern part. And Coimbatore is very close to the central area. Central area is something like from Ernakulam to Malappuram. You can call it as a central area, Thrissur, Palakkad, and all this. And southern state is like and Alappuzha, Kottayam, all this. You can put it under the southern side. And the northern side, of course, Kannur, Kasaragod, Kozhikode, Wayanad, all we can put it under the northern side. So why mainly? Because if you look at it, these three zones, you can identify some similarity between the art forms. I'll come back to that actually. So for easy identifying or easily understanding these art forms and their culture space, we can divide that into three zones: southern, central, and northern. And I'll briefly explain. If you go to the northern side, which is Kasaragod, Kannur, and Kozhikode, that landscape, you could see a very prominent, very vibrant art form called Theyyam. It's very colorful, and the rituals and everything so rooted with the community and ecological aspects. So Theyyam has got a lot of things to learn actually. So Theyyam is a one unique art form of the northern area, and you can see hundreds of themes, and so it's all related to, so rooted with the community. So you can see different themes from Kannur and Kasaragod side. And if you travel from Kannur, Kasaragod, and then to Kozhikode, and then come to the central area where we belong to, Palakkad, Malappuram, and Thrissur, Ernakulam side. Still in central part, you can see a lot of difference, especially in the central part, especially belongs to Palakkad. You can see a very unique art forms. So connection with the Tamil, for example, like the Carnatic music, Agraharams, the floor making, and all this. You can look at, you can see that in the central area. And their art forms also very unique. Kathakali was originated from this area, and then later on it's spread into entire Kerala, now it's entire world. It's actually, the origin is from central part, and there are art forms like many Tolpa Kuta and Shada print, and then the Pudentara. There are many folk and classical art forms. There are many institutions in central area. Kerala Kalamandalam is located in the central area. So you can see some concentration of classical or traditional art forms there. in the other northern side, you can see a Theyyam and some more ritualistic art forms there. If you go to southern side, you can see Padayani, so eco-friendly, and Padayani, Mudietu, and there are many other art forms you can see in the southern side. You can see difference in the Alapura and other region. So for easy analysis, we can structure it like we can have three zones: southern zone, central zone, and northern zone. So let's look at the classifications of the cultural uniqueness of Kerala. So you can see the classifications. This actually, I was talking to one of a researcher from US, and we were just debating on it. Actually, as per his feedback, this is actually not a right way of classifying art forms. It's because of the colonial period, and the art form was so classified like folk arts, tribal, ritualistic, traditional, classical dance, and all this actually. So end of the day, these are all art forms. What is art actually? Art is an expression. So expression of citizens, or expression of individuals. Because you need to have sort of an entertainment and expressions to keep you alive, in your own environments. So we have rituals, festivals, and many way of expressing your or presenting your expressions. So we can just classify this is for easy understanding or grouping of art forms. But end of the day, these all should be put under one box called cultural expressions. So instead of folk arts, tribal rituals, I just classified for easily explaining to you. You can see a folk art, especially on the Palakkad side, close to Coimbatore. We have Attapadi, and it's very famous for many of the tribal art forms, Kokkara, and there are many peculiar art form and instruments we can see from that area, and songs are also very familiar. And these days, you might have noticed like some of the films, they adapted some of these songs from the folk art for tribal area. So you can see tribal area, Palakkad, Idukki, and the Kannu, Wayanad. Those are the three major belt for tribal area. So one is actually Palakkad, Wayanad, and Idukki are the three tribal areas. You can see a lot of staying there. So you can see the art forms, rituals, all related to tribal or Aboriginal people actually. So you can see their art forms. And folk incense, some are like performed by local people, not ritualistic or anything. It's for entertainment, and there are folk songs, folk art forms. So Wiley is concentrating on preserving the folk art forms backed on the banks of River Nila. So there are many folk art forms you can see. If I want to number it, there are many actually. It's called Theyyam can be a folk art. It can Mudietu, and we can the Darigavadam. Then Choktakali. There are many. You can see shadow puppetry, all this can folk art. And ritualistic and traditional incense, it's like, Mudiata is considered as a ritualistic during the festival. The festival of Bhagavati temples, the Mudiatu becomes, active. So that's all ritualistic actually. So Kudiyatam, and all like ritualistic performances or themes, we cannot say call as a folk art. It's actually a part of the ritual, the temple festivals in the Kannur area. So that's one class of art forms. And then it comes to the classical dance forms. Many of you must be knowing it, or many of you are performance of actually the Bharatanatyam, Mohiniyattam, Kathakali, all we call it as they're not temple art forms, but still classical in the classification is classical dance forms. This actually there are many art forms. Even though Kerala is very small, you can see it's so diversified. Art expressions, or dance cultural expressions. It could be either culture, tribal, it could be either folk, or ritualistic, or classical dance forms. So I think I should be mentioning about what is happening in the cultural space of Kerala. Almost around 10 to 15 years back, there was an attempt to create a cultural policy for Kerala. And I'm very sorry to say that India lacks, especially the northern states. People are really not bothered about the cultural significance of culture, and we don't really give value for culture. Culture is actually we should be the community or the societies forget about the culture or the roots, then they're going to miss the major element of their tradition. So we should be looking at culture very seriously, because culture is the one which is driving the society. So you are inculcating something in the society, which is the best festivals, rituals, the behaviors, the way we live. Everything is a transition of your culture and identity. So I'm going to talk about, there are three unique art forms. The UN UNESCO has identified as endangered or you can intangible cultural heritage list. So Kudiyattam was the first Sanskrit drama got into the list 15 years back by the UN recognized. It's an ICH, Intangible Cultural Heritage of Kerala, and it's in the UN list. And then after that, there was a great attempt. Some of the eminent scholars from the Ernakulam side, and Mudiyatu got into that list. Mudiyatu is actually, you can see two images. The top one is the Kudiyattam, and second one is a Mudiyatu. This is actually based on the Kali or the goddess, and this is actually based on many stories. There are many characters come and play. You can see some connection with some resemblance to Kathakali. And this is actually Sanskrit drama, and still mainly performed by the Chakya community. This is actually by the Nair community. So during the Bhagavati temples, Mudiyatu. And the one more practice also got into the intangible culture heritage list of UNESCO. That's actually Vedic chanting. So these are the three cultural expressions got into the intangible cultural heritage list of UN, UNESCO. And I think there's an attempt going on to get Theyyam also into the list of ICH, Intangible Culture Heritage list. And I don't know how many of you have really seriously looked at, actually, there's a lot of attempt happening in India by IGNs in the Gandhi Center for Arts and the Culture Ministry, and through the Sangeet Nadaga academies. They're trying to look at the cultural heritage. So we have two kinds of heritage: your tangible and intangible cultural heritage. So intangible cultural heritage is actually something which we need to preserve, but UNESCO giving a lot of importance, and then the countries have started looking at, the cultural expressions are the great identities of the community. So we should be preserving, or trying to do the survival of these art forms or these expressions. So from Kerala, these are the three main items got into the list. And I think that's in nutshell. I very quickly I just briefed about his cultural history of Kerala, and how we can look at from south to north, and three zones, and then we can look at the various kind of cultural expressions, like tribal, folk, classical, and ritualistic. Then we can look at some of the art forms which got into the ICH Intangible Culture Heritage list of UNESCO. And now I'll talk about. I was in the heading. If you notice, the topic of today's discussion is actually the one is the cultural landscape of Kerala. I just quickly briefed it. I know it's a vast topic. One art form itself we can take for hours to talk. So I just quickly briefed up, that particular art form. Now we look at that from a youth perspective. Why I want to add this youth perspective to this, because youth is the one who's taking or driving this. The future of these art forms should be driven by the youth, or they should be getting involved in the conservation or preservation activities of these tangible and intangible art forms. So Wiley means the goddess of paddy fields. So Wiley started working, the youth group started working almost 18 years back on the banks of River Nila, the river which is originating from Tamil Nadu and flowing the rest of the life in Kerala, Palakkad, Thrissur, and Malappuram. In 2004, we gathered together, around 10 people gathered, and then we decided, or interested to start a group to preserve the folk art forms or folklore of the river. So as it says, like learning folklore is not retrogression but a realization. So it's not like understanding your roots, understanding the art forms, culture. It's not to go back to the old days actually, but realize it actually, the importance and value of it, then bring it to the present scenario. For me, I'm a computer engineer, and I always say computer is my profession and folklore is my passion. So I always try to understand the the depth of each art form, how it is connected. So that's the whole purpose of Wiley. When Wiley started in 2004, we were having a folk expressions, folk dance group. Now we branched into many areas of youth-related activities. So we have documentation, river documentation project, Bharatapuzha Cultural Landscape Documentation Project, which is still going on, and the craft revival project, which is called Craftilla, the revival of unique craft from the banks of River Nila. Then we have a contemporary bamboo band, and the music which you enjoyed is actually contemporary band. We want the youth to look at their potential. Then we have a media collective, which is actually looked into the various aspects of media like film, photography, and or all these aspects. Then we have an alternative school. That's a place we believe that creating an alternative learning space in the society, because uh, through our education systems, I'm not blaming or complaining actually, through our regular education systems, we always miss or share the elements of the folk art or connections. I can give a classic example. In Bharatapuzha, near to Bharatapuzha, close to Ponnani, we had a mathematics institute, Nila School of Mathematics, and during our studies or school days or college, we never heard about such an education institution which was there in the banks of River Nila. But when we started learning more about the river, its culture and tradition, we came to know from an international journal that the school was there was a school existing in the banks of River Nila. It's called Nila School of Mathematics. There were a lot of mathematicians, who contributed to the mathematics and astrology and astronomy. So you could see a lot of such information need to be shared to our young generation. So we thought creating an alternative learning space is need of the hour. So we have an altar school and we have a river school running, and we have developed as river module, which is based on the values of the data we collect through the river research project. So this in a nutshell, Wiley. I just want to give how we could do actually. Youth can always look at the roots and could lot of things. And from Tamil Nadu, I have one of my close friend. He's doing an excellent work in Chennai. Again, documenting the Tamil culture and everything. So there are projects happening in the different nook and corners of India, but it's ideal that youth should be connected and understanding, and there should be a way of exchanging information between the older people and young generation. So with that note, I'll end here, and thanks so much everyone for listening to me. I know the limitations of online space because you all so much of people are gathered there, and I couldn't see you when I was just looking at the slides on me. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to give a glimpse of the cultural landscape of Kerala and what youth could do. And I'm eager to listen if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
We have combined my gratitude. I take the great privilege to thank our resource person, Mr. Vinod Nabiar, Director of Bionic Group, Kerala, for accepting our invitation and for being us today. Your thoughts have truly inspired us. The cultural aspects of Kerala nourished our minds with colors. We will cultivate the advice you gave us in real life. Thank you, sir. I extend my gratitude to our principal, Reverend Sister Dr. Helen, for not only spending her time with us today, but also for encouraging us to achieve their endeavors. Thank you, Sister. I extend my sincere thanks to our Vice Principal, Reverend Sister Dr. Mary Fabiola, Coordinator of Finance Committee, Reverend Sister Dr. Jacqueline Mary, Dean of Student Affairs, Dr. Yu Mary, for arranging this national seminar. I would like to thank members of Student Affairs Committee and Finance Association for guiding us today. I would like to thank the member of faculty that I thank my fellow students. Without you, this function would not be a success. Thank you, students. Once again, I thank one and all wholeheartedly. Elegance is a statement and attitude. Elegant women are women of character and confidence. Thank you. Thank you, sir.